Hey Tim, can you hear me? We can't hear him. Can you give me another test there, Timmy?
Test. You
Ah,
there?
there we go. How we doing, big
Good.
guy?
Doing great. How are you?
Good man. We're excited to have you on. We just need, if
I'm
you don't
pumped.
mind, give me,
Yep.
Frank. Do you want him to shift just a little bit to the right so he's in the middle of the window? Yeah. Can you just
To
scoot
my
like a half?
right? This way?
S- Right there is perfect.
Perfect. That way? All right, cool.
And you can hear me? Okay. Sounds good, Tim.
I hear you perfect. Yep. Yep.
Beautiful, man. You look great.
Thanks, man. Thanks. How's
So
everything going on your end?
we're doing great. Very excited to have you on. It's been a really good fall. A lot of stuff heating up with the recruiting stuff, and we've been doing
Totally.
a lot of stuff in the media, which is exciting. Which obviously brings us to having a little interview with you. So we're excited to get into it.
I mean, yeah, me too. I mean, I love what you guys are doing. It's been awesome to follow. It helps a lot too. Just getting some of that stuff, reading some of it, catching up. So it's cool.
We appreciate it. We're trying to bring it all to one spot, which
Yeah,
definitely helps the college coaches and the ones that are across the country, especially too, because I know it's not that easy to get out to Long Island.
exactly, exactly.
All
So
right,
my,
so
like my
Frank, if you don't mind, if you can roll the intro, we're gonna get right into it.
perfect.
Audio Jungle.
All right, our next episode of Beyond the Game. I got a former teammate, a friend, an unbelievable coach who's rising in the college ranks in the women's game, which is pretty cool and unique. Something that we'll definitely talk about tonight. Tim McCormack, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me on. And I was just saying, the stuff you're doing here is awesome. It's great to follow, helps us, and I'm excited to be on.
We really appreciate it, man. We, it really started as a passion, the media stuff. Like within our company and what we were doing, it was mostly, developing players and helping some boys and girls through the recruiting process and running lacrosse events and getting an opportunity to be involved in lacrosse media and communicate with some great college coaches and high school coaches and players and just talk about the game and try to promote it. We're really trying to be cutting edge with the stuff we do because there's some things that I noticed growing up and something that you can relate to too, I'm sure, as we talk about that. It was kind of like underexposed in some ways. Like I just think, from a stat standpoint or just like a game coverage standpoint or maybe like covering some teams that are under the radar, like, for us, that's the biggest thing of what we're trying to do. And I guess for you out there, like, is it tough sometimes to really get an accurate read on players just by following things online? Like, what's it like for you as a college coach to see like what's going on? How do you educate yourself to see what's up with like some of the high school players around the country?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's about, at this stage, it's really a word of mouth game, and you got these people that you could trust. You got these coaches that you have kind of these connections with and developed over the years. Maybe they give you a good kid or two here and there, and just tapping into those individuals. And for myself, I was fortunate to recruit from everywhere, I mean, you could imagine where in this country and even international, and just kind of keeping those ties, keeping the connections in. And then, something like what you're doing pops up. And I just said it to you before, but it's a huge tool. I mean, honestly, like, I don't actually physically have to be there on Long Island. I'm all the way out here, and I was out in Chicago last year and I read that stuff and I was like, wow, like, this is at my fingertips in a moment, catching up on who's doing well and what kids are, shining and doing all sorts of things. And that's a huge tool. So that was a big time help as well.
I love it, man. And talk a little bit about, and I know I was watching actually your podcast with Jamie Monroe, which is great. Like I got some great insight into, just like, your coaching background. I know I ran into you, which is a cool story. that's worth sharing real quick. When you were over at Northwestern coaching, and my dad and I were just touring the school, and we saw your name up on the board, and then we ran to the coach's office, and you were nice enough to hang out with us. That was pretty wild.
Unreal.
Unreal. That was unbelievable, getting a chance to just see you for a little bit. But it was so cool, just like what you were building out there with an incredible staff. I know that was a huge influence on you. You learned a lot, and but just take everyone through real quick, like how you kind of ended up as the head women's lacrosse coach at ASU, which is so cool, like the growth of the game out west, and there's girls now on the East Coast getting opportunity to go out there, which is exciting too. So just talk a little about your background and how you kind of ended up where you are.
Totally. So grew up on Long Island, grew up in Long Beach, and had just kind of a tremendous lacrosse upbringing. Got a chance to work with some of the, in my opinion, the best minds there in the game from a young age. A guy named Johnny Piazza comes to mind. I mean, this guy's a true coach, and his youth teams were the best on the island, honestly. Patty Olson's another guy who comes to mind, just kind of taught me, just basics and how to stick to those basics. As I got older, had a great coach in Buddy Hoffman, who was just encouraging. And these are just all like former Long Beach guys and mentors that really instilled in me, what was to come and what my kind of coaching was going to be shaped to be. Was fortunate enough to go out and go to UMass, and had a chance to play there. Got a one redshirt year, so I played for 5, which was a bonus for sure. Had a great career there, and again, just like going on the mentor thing, got a chance to be coached by Greg Cannella, who is just the top of my list as far as when I think of mentors and people who showed me a way, and just was extremely encouraging and passionate, and honestly would not be where I am today without him. That's for sure. Played for Doc Schneider and played with Doc Schneider, actually. So I backed him up for 2 years, and then he got the job right out of school, which was incredible for me to kind of watch this transition of teammate to coach type thing, which is very hard to navigate, but he did awesome. And, another guy that just really kind of taught me, about hard work and toughness and sacrifice, finding an edge. That was kind of one of his big things, and mentored me to want to coach, to be a coach. And that really helped kind of push me in that direction. And then graduate, always knew in the back of my mind I wanted to be a coach throughout this entire time. I mean, I remember sitting down with one of the early names I mentioned, Johnny Piazza. I must have been in 7th grade, and I'm sitting down with this guy drawing on a napkin how to run a motion offense. I was going to coach my brothers like 3rd grade. So that passion was there from such a young age that when I left, that was what I was trying to find. I was just trying to find an opportunity to get out there. At the time, it was men's. I was just like, I want to be a coach. I want to be a coach, so passionate and into it. And had a couple of looks, and was actually really close to going out to Holy Cross on the men's side, and randomly get a call on a Sunday afternoon the day before I was going to accept that job. And it's Scott Hiller, who's another Long Island guy from Garden City, went to UMass as well. And he says to me, he's the volunteer assistant, and he's married to the head coach at Northwestern, women's, that is. And he says to me, would you be interested in doing women's? And he didn't really have to say much more, because you and I both know growing up, that was the team. That was the, whatever you want to call it, the equal on the men's side, a Hopkins type, just a historic team. And I knew it was like the team that I knew, when I thought women's lacrosse, I thought Northwestern. So
one of the best memories, not to cut you off, I want to get back to that. One of my best memories actually in college, lacrosse memories, because our program, unfortunately, was not where the women's program was when I was in college. But at the same time, just out of respect and appreciation for the college game and what our girls program was doing, it was very cool to just be in school while they were, so successful, making it to a championship. When I was a freshman, the girls team, that is. And Northwestern, when they traveled to Philadelphia to play under the lights against UPenn, there was probably an upwards of 10,000 girls, coming out to watch that game at Franklin Field, which, is a big stadium, but that opened my eyes like, I cannot believe what's going on in women's lacrosse, and there are that many girls interested in coming to watch this. Like, that was an eye-opening experience for me. I'll never forget it. And watching the Northwestern girls play, like, that's when I was like, this sport is great. I love their style of play. Like, there's so much to this. I see the appeal, and I totally know what you're talking about when you bring that up.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I have a similar experience I'll kind of touch on in a second. That eye-opening, like, wow, for the game and for the sport. So yeah, I mean, got the chance, went out there to Evanston and loved it, and got the offer and had a tremendous opportunity. I mean, could not be more fortunate for those series of events and those phone calls and those little things that happen. And touch on that kind of similar experience. We were fortunate enough my first year at Northwestern to play in a Final Four, and we were out at Giant United Stadium down in Towson, and it was jammed, absolutely packed. I had played games there as a player, and I mean, we were lucky if we had half of the bleachers full. I mean, it was good. They always got a decent crowd, but it was amazing. I mean, it's very, very similar to kind of everything that you just mentioned as well, no doubt. So, I mean, you're spot on.
Coach Cannella, we gotta bring him up again, because so many people that have played under that man just say so many amazing things and just talk about him as a role model and an influencer, and someone who's a great mentor. As an assistant coach, as someone who's now a head coach leading a college program, what would you say is the one thing that has stuck with you that Coach Cannella taught you as a player that you now kind of incorporate into your own maybe coaching style or philosophy or culture?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and framed very well. Two things. I'd say number one, above all, is toughness, having a chip on your shoulder, and being tough. I mean, I'm sure just from your experience that we never played each other, but just kind of the word on the street with UMass always is you're going to know you played that group. And that was something that, he preached, and we took ownership in, honestly, and he allowed us to do that. And then the second thing is, and extremely important when you're talking about, what we do and competing and everything, and that's controlling what we can control. He was a big guy on like, hey, weather, I don't care if it's 2 degrees, like, we're going to play. Like, what can we control? We can control our effort. We can control our energy. We can control these things, but we're not going to be able to say, hey, don't snow today, or out here where we are kind of taking it to our team. It's too hot out there, early, late August, early September. Like, that's the first thing I told our team. It's like, we're not talking about the weather here, because, there's nothing we can do about it. So we're going to move forward. And, we're fortunate to have 90% of the year be amazing, but those couple of months, in that month, it's hot, and we don't talk about it. We don't deal. We push forward. Refs is another thing. That's an uncontrollable. Like, there's no reason to get wrapped up in that. And that was something. Those two things come to mind without a doubt when I think of the things that he preached and he pushed forward for us. That I, without a doubt, if you asked any of our players, would tell you those are the two things he preaches a lot.
Now, take me through your experience at Northwestern. Like, what are some takeaways that you got from your 6 years there, coaching and working with, I know, some of the most amazing players in the world, players that dominated the college ranks, moving up to playing, for the USA team, young women who are now women leading college programs and doing amazing things, not just in lacrosse, but probably outside lacrosse. The Hillers, what did you learn from them that you kind of take into your role now as the Arizona State, university head coach? Yeah,
so I think when you think about it, it was just an incredible experience overall. The first thing that is that Kelly is the best coach there, and to kind of have the chance to be under someone like that. It was special. Every day was special, and I felt like I learned something new. And I would say the one of the biggest takeaways was positivity, and just her approach to the day to day. As coaches, sometimes we have tendencies to kind of, we got to get better here. We got to do that. And her kind of first thing, and one of the first mindsets that she always had was like, all right, like what did we do well? Like what were the things that we did well on? Let's start there, right? There's a sense of reality that I think we all have to have as a coach on, like, yeah, we do need to brush some things up, but there are certain things we did well, and let's make sure that we have those dialed in as well. And then, I think it carries over to players too. When you have those individual meetings and stuff like that, being, listening, just sitting back and actually taking in and absorbing what do we need from this individual? What are we hearing from her, and how do we take that, make it into a positive and help her from that. And I think those are a couple of things that, in coaching are huge. And then the last thing, and not by the least, there was so much, but if I'm just going to give you a good little synopsis, the thing that I learned probably most as a coach, and it will always stay with me, is the willingness to learn, right? You're talking about arguably the best coach of all time, the best women's lacrosse coach of all time, won 7 championships. I mean, you could go through the list of accolades, but she always was learning and always was trying to find the next edge and what was going to make us successful. Like what worked 10 years ago, and she was very well aware of this, wasn't going to work today. And how are we going to get the thing that works today? And was always in constant search of that. And to me you can't put value on seeing something like that, someone of that caliber constantly learning, prodding, figuring out what the next thing is. It was awesome.
Sure. I love that approach and philosophy, and it's reassuring, and it's cool to hear that some of the most successful coaches, kind of have that approach, because that's definitely a culture that we try to undertake with the coaches that work with, within our organization and the people that work with us. And, you can always get a little bit better. One other thing I was kind of curious about, as it just relates to, not just, who you learn from and what you apply to your program currently, but like, I know a lot of college coaches, they need to you need to differentiate your programs, right? So like, you're already differentiated probably by, the school that you're at. So every school has its differences. A lot of them, especially when you're in the same conference, have a lot of their similarities. And you being in such a competitive conference with, I believe you guys had like 3 teams make the tournament last year, which is absurd. Like that's not normal. How are you trying to put like your personal stamp on this program and differentiate and say like, hey, this is a good option. If you want to head out west, go to a great school, fun school, a pretty cool school. Totally. But you're going to go to a school that's a little different because of reason, X, Y, or Z. Like what would you say one or maybe some of those reasons are that you're trying to like talk to recruits about?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say it like this is just look at the on the field stuff. I think what we're doing here from an on-field perspective is definitely different than your typical team. I talk to recruits constantly. I tell them, the first thing I tell them if they're an offensive-minded player is, you're going to set more picks on this team than any other team. That's something that, you will play in our system. You're going to learn how to play a 2-man game, and you're going to learn how to play with others. It's not your standard, get the ball on the top right, everyone get out of my way, I'm going to try to get to the cage. So we're definitely on the offensive side of the ball, a 7-person unit, and you're only as good as the last guy in that, honestly. And that's a system. It's a box system that we play, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of touches, a lot of freedom to make plays and make decisions and stuff like that. So it's definitely a unique system. That would be the first thing that comes to my mind. I would also go on a limb and say we're going to play at a really up-tempo pace and push the ball, look to try to cash in transition as much as we can, and take full advantage of our early offense. So I would say there's definitely a ton of freedom that comes with it, but that's given by the way that we practice. And we practice in decision-making opportunities from the first minute to the last minute of practice. You are making decisions. There's no, time to, mess around and kind of just do your own thing, or like individuals. Our stick work has some decision-making pieces added to it. It's not like, your standard, all right, get next to someone, throw it, or do a line drill. there are things that we do that layer on top of each other that by the end you made 500 decisions. I mean, that's a smaller number that when you get into that game and you play it at full tempo, you're ready to rock. So that's on the D end of things, we're all about discipline and control. So I tell these guys, that's going to be who we are. We're going to go out there. We're going to sit nice and low. We're not going to worry about takeaways. We're actually going to let the opponents make mistakes because they will. Ball will eventually come down. We're going to give up shots that we want to give up. I tell our team the first day, I say, guys, I don't care if we give up 100 shots in the game. If they're the shots we want and we're going to make saves on them, let's go. Because we'll take those odds any day of the week with our goalies and the ability to get the ground balls in front. So discipline and control come to mind when thinking on the D end as well.
Pretty cool to see one of the better goalies on the island that we love watching. She just committed recently to ASU. That's Katie Valley. She's an absolute stud. So I'm sure bringing in some big time goalkeepers is very helpful to your system, what you guys are trying to do on the defensive end. So I guess for a lot of people that tune in just to our show, our Long Island lacrosse people, it's growing nationwide a little bit in terms of our reach and our audience. But for you, are you actively recruiting Long Island players? Or just kind of what are you looking for in terms of your recruits in general? If you want to speak more generally about this, just kind of curious.
Definitely. Yeah. So as far as recruits, we definitely are. Love Long Island, love getting back when I can, love recruiting. It just gives me a sense of, I think we know what makes each other tick. And I've always done well on Long Island, and we'll always continue to recruit Long Island for sure. Simply, the first thing we're looking for is passion for the game. I think that comes above everything. Do you truly love this sport? What are some things that you can show us that lead us to believe that? Honestly, nowadays, Instagram's one. You could figure that out pretty quickly right there. All right. And then 2 is kind of just conversations with the individual. What are some of your favorite teams out there? Who are some of your favorite players? If you have some quick answers to those types of questions, you're clearly watching this game. You're clearly studying. You're clearly into it and involved. I'll talk to coaches and say, what are they doing outside? Are they in the weight room? Are they staying late for shooting? Are they asking to do extra stuff? Do they want to watch film? So these are kind of the things generally that we're looking for. We feel like if we get the people who fit the mold as far as passion for the game, love for the sport, we could do the rest. And then obviously we recruit. I always say that you can't recruit one kid, right? So you can't just say, oh, you know what? We're looking for athletes. We're looking for fast up and down kids. Great. Yeah, we need those guys, but we also need guys who could finish and catch inside. And, we need people who could shoot from the 8-meter really well. And we need people who could feed. And we need defenders who are willing to play that style of, sit low and give up what we want. Don't worry about causing turnovers. And, from the back end of that, engage people who are, playmakers. Have the ability to get the ball up the field if we need to. Have the ability to maybe come out and get a ground ball every now and then. And kind of just looking at the whole picture. But I think it really starts with passion for the game and love for the sport first.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's pivotal. I'm with you. And for us, because we coach a lot of times, not as much the college players. We're coaching players who just pick up sticks, youth players and high school players. We're trying to bring out that passion for the game, figure out, okay, who really wants to do this, who loves this, who wants to get great at it, and then, try to do everything we can to teach the basics, maintain that passion, bring it out, and then make sure those players in particular are prepared for the next level. That's kind of what we do. And then I love that that's who you're trying to attract, because I agree, the player that just loves the game, once they're around and recruited by like-minded people and are being inspired on a daily basis from a coaching staff, at the top with a head coach such as yourself or any of the great coaches that are out there, I think that's when great teams and programs are built, and they're built quickly. So that's another thing I wanted to bring up, because for you, and I'm sure your school, you have conversations with, with the administration about okay, what's the timeline like? What are your goals as a program? How quickly you're going to do this thing? Unfortunately, a lot of times college coaches and even high school coaches now, unfortunately, it's happening, even lower and lower. They don't get the time they need to build the culture and the program that they want. For you, how are you trying to instill that, quickly without rushing, because you want to do it right. So I guess that's the fine line. Like how are you trying to figure that out and balance it?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I kind of thought about when all this kind of came up and thinking timeline and all that stuff was, let's focus on today. Mm-hmm. Let's focus on one day at a time. Go back to what can we control? And that's that. Now with that, I told the team the first day I spoke to them, I said, my goal as a coach ultimately is to make the best 2 hours of your day, the 2 hours that we're together. Mm-hmm. And if we could do that successfully and literally focus that is our best 2 hours of the day, no matter what, I mean, you're going to be in a pretty good spot at the end of that. Let the thing run its course. But, if look at the flip side of that, right? If that's the 2 hours that the kid and the individuals and the girls are dreading, oh my goodness, I got to get out to practice. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Now it's tough. Now how much are you really getting out of these individuals, in the time that you have with them? So that was my first goal. And it's a process. I think it's a day-to-day process. It's not something that we're looking at as a long-term thing. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to take advantage of every moment and do it the right way, for sure.
I heard you say something in a recent interview. I'm not sure if I saw or read it, but I believe you referred to your school as a destination college. Is that accurate? Mm-hmm. And if so, what do you mean by that? Because I'm not too familiar with that.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember saying it. It could have. I definitely could have. But I would say, in that it's a place that when people just thinking about that term, I would say that people sometimes tend to take the easy route. Meaning, if you're on Long Island, you know what? You could drive up to X, Y, or Z school that's in Mass and take 2 hours, or drive down 5 hours or so to Baltimore, and that's pretty safe bet. It's easy. The destination piece becomes getting on that plane, and that's what I think of when hearing that term is if you get on that plane and you make the leap to at least come see this place. It speaks for itself. It's that type of place where you will see on the flight in, you're going to be like, wow, this is different. This is cool. This is unique. You fly in over unbelievable mountains. Our football stadiums kind of sits right between two mountains, which is so cool. Got mountains from the views from the field. There's palm trees. The weather is phenomenal. Again, we don't harp on the weather much, but just from a student's perspective, day to day, it's pretty nice to kind of know, it's going to be sunny tomorrow. I could just get my t-shirt ready and I'm good to go. So in a nutshell, I would say that's kind of what that term means to me and what this place is for sure.
I love it. We have about 5 minutes left, so I don't want to rush us. We have a couple questions coming in. We're going to try to vet them out. There's one in particular, which I find this question kind of funny, but it's also, I think, important for people to know. One question just came in asking how many emails you get on a daily basis as a college coach.
It's ebbs and flows. So let's just look at prior to recruiting time. So we just started recruiting last week. Let's look at maybe a month ago. You're talking about maybe 3 to 4. It might ramp up here and there, but let's look a week out of a recruiting tournament. We're getting close to 60 to 100, a week.
Wow.
And we do just to kind of go off of that. We do our best to comb through every single one. Mm-hmm. as much as we can. If there's a video link, I'll click it. I don't like to leave any stone unturned. I've had 4-year starters come out of a video click from a senior.
Wow.
So yeah, and it's something that I'll always hold true and do. But yeah, it gets up there. But we do our best. I can't speak for everybody. It's just something that I've always found. Again, when you find someone who's a 4-year starter for you that came out of a click of a video as a senior who
Sure.
was trying to go to play basketball,
Wow.
You're going to click everything.
You get some of the best athletes, those kids that are committed to play college basketball, and they're like, oh, wait, a Division I program in lacrosse is reaching
this works. Exactly.
Yeah, we were just talking to Keith Cromwell was one of those guys. He's now the head coach at Manhasset. He was committed to Hobart to play basketball. All of a sudden, Rutgers came knocking on his door like last minute, and he ended up going there.
Unreal.
Yeah, so one other thing, you talk about not leaving any stone unturned. I love that analogy because my dad and I, we take a college road tour every February break. We visit 8 to 10 schools in a certain region around the country. We're definitely coming to the Southwest soon, I promise, especially how you described the football stadium. I mean, my dad's been there. It's ridiculous. He said it's beautiful, but we'd love to come see you play. And just going back, I think it was 3 years ago, we were at Sacred Heart, and we were meeting with the staff. And one really interesting thing that they said to us was, we can't afford as a program to not reply to any of the emails that are coming through our inbox. At the time, they were building up the program. They hadn't shown success yet. Any recruit that emailed them, any event that reached out that said, hey, do you want to come make a couple $100 and work my event? They were replying to it. And I just love that philosophy. And I think that's something you'll try to do, just knowing who you are as just as a coach, and just seeing you as a player back in the day, just as a worker. I know you're going to keep doing that, but I thought that was interesting. And another thing, which leads us to our second question, this February break coming up in 2020, we're going to be going up in the New England area. We're going to be seeing Coach Cannella at UMass. Hopefully going to get a chance to interview him. If there's one question you want me to ask him from you that I can pass along to him, what would it be?
Oh my goodness, that's tough. I would say, how do you sustain success? And I would also say, how do you define success? Because first of all, the sustaining piece, it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do there year after year, for the most part. And with, looking at some individuals who are still playing at such a high level, how many people did he put onto the USA team? And, how many tournaments has he made? How many leaders has he created? And, and I would say, secondly, how do you define it? Because that piece, to me, when thinking of Coach Cannella, goes far beyond the wins, losses, the tactical, all that stuff. It's like what, I consider what I'm doing here and what all the buddies that I have are doing. And that's success. When you're able to kind of get it done on the field in the 4 years you have with these guys, but then look deeper and look further down the line at, what these individuals are all doing in the world. And I would be curious to kind of see how he responds to what he defines it as, because to me, that's the definition. And he's got that for sure. So yeah, that would be a good one.
Cool. I appreciate that response. I love it. And that's definitely something that we will ask him. It's something, the idea of success is something that we talk about all the time. And when we talk about it, again, a lot of our interactions, our media coverage, the kids we work with, the coaches that we work with and have relationships with, they're at the high school level. So for us, we talk about what's success for a high school lacrosse or a high school program. Is it a state championship? Is it a county championship? Is it making a playoff? Or is it preparing kids for college? Is it making sure that whoever, if you have 25, 30, 45 boys or girls on your team, what type of impression are you leaving on those young men or young women? What are you doing for them on the field as well as off the field in terms of preparing them and influencing them and mentoring them? And for us, a lot of times it's we don't even really talk about the successes on the field as it relates to success itself and what it's defined as. And I think unfortunately people get a little too caught up with the on-field stuff, although it is very important, and I understand from a lot of perspectives why people win and why they want to win. But that's why I love that you brought that up, because at the college level, when winning becomes a little bit more important, right? Like defining success becomes a little more difficult.
I would just take that and kind of go off of that and say it's hand in glove. If you are doing the things that you just mentioned and that we talked about, right, and your goal or your version of success is, having that impact and dialing that in. If you have those things, the success on the field, as we've seen from the mentors we've had and the coaches we've had and put us in these spots to be able to do this, that success on field will take care of itself. So I am a totally firm believer in the fact that is hand in glove. And if you have the success defined as, making those impacts and creating, positive light in individuals and pushing them into the world, ready to kind of make contributions, you're going to get it done on the field.
No doubt, man. And I think that's just a great place to leave, the conversation in general, because I think our audience and the people watching this got a really great sense of who you are and what you're about and how you're going to run your program. It was really great catching up with you. And, we're really excited for you because we know that this is a great opportunity where the girls' game is, where you're at in your life,
Yep.
with your young family, and you're moving in a great direction. So we're really excited to promote you and your successes. We're going to keep following you. And I'm excited for anyone that watches this and gets a chance to see what your program is up to over the next few years. So thank you so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Corey. Thanks for having me. I'll continue to follow. Keep up the good work. It's been awesome to follow along.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it, man. And we'll see everyone next week on Beyond the Game Tuesday night at 7:30.
All right. Awesome.